What was the biggest hurdle for you in taking this as a serious potential treatment modality?
The psychedelic assisted therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest hurdle is growing up with the commercial, this is your brain on drugs, and having the egg cracked into the skillet and sizzling, just in that whole dare era, is learning. But it wasn't hard though, because when I started looking at the data and learning, these are not addictive substances for the most part. The addiction profile for them is very low, very, very low. And for Ibogaine, it's non-existent. There's LSD, there's Ibogaine, there's ayahuasca, there's the DMT, there's MDMA. Of all of those, I believe, if I remember correctly, MDMA has the highest addiction potential, but it's not high. When you compare it to alcohol, it's not high. So I think it was just a matter of getting educated about it. And then once I was just like, these can be so helpful for people. And I can't wait for some of these things to be available for people, especially with the ones that have been designated as breakthrough therapies. So that's for psilocybin and MDMA. And I think recently LSD might have been as well. But super hopeful for people that have treatment-resistant depression, have been struggling with depression for 10, 20, 30 years of their life. Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we let them try it?
In layman's terms, if somebody's listening to this and has maybe some of those mental blocks tied to whether it's a anti-drug ad or fill in the blank religious hiccups, what can you tell them that ultimately, hey, this is what psychedelics are doing, this is what psychedelics aren't doing? Can you speak to that a little bit to maybe lower that bar of, hey, these are extraordinarily dangerous? You've already hit on the addictive nature of them actually being quite low, but why, as a clinician, why are we using this? Why are we interested in this? And what are some of the things that you've seen that help versus like traditional therapy?
Yeah. When I did the MAPS training, it was amazing because we got to watch some of the sessions. They had them recorded, and without giving too much away, to protect the identity, right, of the person. But what I saw in one of the videos, and as a clinician, you'll appreciate that, but I saw in real time memory reconsolidation, and it was unbelievable, and it was on her own. Like her mind was doing it, the therapist wasn't doing it. When you're in these sessions, when they're it's called a dosing session. So when they have the medicine and they're in the sessions, they're really having an internal experience. Like, you're not interacting with them for the most part. And so just seeing, kind of like an analogy of like penicillin, like seeing this medicine work and go and fix what needed to be fixed. It was incredible. So they're powerful medicines, powerful substances, and they have kind of the way that they interact in the mind. It depends on which substance it is, and if it works on the 5-HTA whatever receptor versus the 2A's, and ketamine works on a whole different one. But they, with MDMA, for instance, it downregulates the amygdala, which is your fight or flight. So, which is why the MDMA is so helpful for PTSD. It downregulates that amygdala, which is your fight or flight, and then it upregulates your compassion. So whatever you have been traumatized with, you're able to look at that material without it being scary. And at the same time, you're able to come and look at that, but with some serious compassion too. And so you can see it from a different angle, with that compassionate lens, which really, really helps. So it was fascinating to see some of that in those sessions.